according to Matthew. But about that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then two will be left in the field. One will be taken, and one will be left. Two women will be grinding meal together. One will be taken, and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this. If the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would have not let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
A few years back, the band Chicago asked the question, does anyone really know what time it is? Do you know what time it is? We get to a passage like this. And in the 3-year lectionary cycle, Matthew is the gospel, primary gospel readings during the coming year. And we start off the beginning of the church year, everybody else but us, with a look not to the past, but to the future. For Advent does not tell us to be ready for the coming, but the return of the King. Now, this reading that I just shared with you comes from a larger section in Matthew's account where Jesus is talking about, destruction. Death. Everything that had been known and counted on was no more. By the time this was written down, everything that they had based their entire culture on had been destroyed. You know, it just occurred to me just now, looking out on your beautiful faces, everybody eager that you're waiting for something. Maybe you're waiting for me to get to the point. But you're waiting. Do you know what time it is? What time?
Morning.
It's morning. Anybody else have another guess? 11:21.
Time to be ready.
Time to be ready. Sunday. All good guesses. What else? Third Sunday of Advent.
Time to prepare.
Time to prepare.
It's now.
It's now.
Future. Deep.
I like that. Oh, it's now. It's right now. I want you to think for a moment what Jesus is telling his disciples with this lesson. He starts off by saying, look, just as the days of Noah. They all knew what that was. They all knew the story. Does anybody not know who Noah is? Okay, good. Okay, everyone knows who Noah is. Do you know what happened with Noah?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right. He was saved. Okay. Just as in the days of Noah, everybody around him were marrying and being given in marriage. They had jobs. They saved for the future. They made plans for the harvest. They looked forward into the future. Then one day, Moses entered the ark.
I don't know that story.
Hit the home run there.
I'm just seeing if y'all are paying attention. When Noah, not Moses, entered the ark, they still were living as if they had a tomorrow. Because the rain didn't start falling right away. They still thought they had the rest of their life. And they were right. Because the rains that had been promised by God and called through Noah swept them all away. And with their death, with their plan, and their future, and their dreams, and hopes, it was all taken away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Now his use of that title, Son of Man, is significant because it doesn't speak strictly of a spiritual happening, but a reality to be embraced. This idea that Jesus is coming. We have been talking about this for going on 1900 plus years. He hasn't shown up yet. So why are we still talking about it? Why do we still say Jesus has died, Jesus is risen, Jesus will come again? Are those just nice words from a nice prayer in a nice building? Or do they mean something? So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. And at that time, some will be taken, some will be left. We, nice, decent church people that we are, like to assume that we're the ones taken. But what if you're not? Are you ready for the coming of the Son of Man? Do you hear what I'm saying? Are you ready for the coming of the Son of Man? Because this is not some abstract theological concept that we trot out every so often just to put the fear of God into you. This is real stuff. This isn't something from an old book that I'm reading. This is kind of at the core of what Christianity is about. Jesus came to show us the way to God. He's coming to take us into the presence of God. So you have to ask yourself, am I ready? It could happen in the next blink of an eye. And I know some of you trying not to blink right now. It could happen in the next heartbeat. I like to watch European soccer, and this past week, 2 weeks ago, they were having qualifications in Europe for the next World Cup, 2018. They're already talking about the one after that, in 24. And people are already preparing bids for 28. What happens to those plans if he comes back tomorrow or this afternoon or through those doors right now? Are you ready? We talk about this stuff. We talk about this idea of Christ coming, and we talk about the judgment. So I want you to close your eyes for a moment and go with me on this. The Son of Man has come. You are, in the next breath, standing before the throne of God. You're looking into God's face. And you're watching the words form on God's lips. You can hear your heart pounding in your chest. And God begins to speak. What do you hear? Does God say to you, why are you here? What makes you think that what you were doing in the 5 minutes before I called you here is pleasing to me? You feel each beat of your heart. And with each breath, it seems like an eternity has already begun. And the words form on your lips. And you began to speak. What will God hear from you? Yeah, I was reading something that maybe I shouldn't have been reading, but it was a good story. Yeah, I was talking about someone, but it was true. Yeah, but and then you pause, realizing that all the excuses, all the plans, all the coulda, woulda, shouldas were nothing more than idle dreams. That what you could have done with your life, the time that God had given you, was not used wholly in His name. And then God speaks again. Okay. I hope that was something that you will take to heart. Because each time we open our mouth and words come out. Maybe the last words we ever speak. Each activity that we engage in, each thought, the things we buy, the things we do when no one else is looking, may be the last thing that you ever do, say, or think. Now, about now, some of you are thinking, oh God, I came to feel good. He's making me feel really bad. Well, if I can do that, imagine what it's going to be like when you have to explain it to the big guy. I'm easy. I'm not cheap, but I'm easy. Are you ready to give an account of yourself before God? Are you ready today to stand before the throne of grace, the throne of judgment, the throne of mercy, to stand before God and to say, I have no excuse. But what I have is the love of your Son. And his promise that his grace was sufficient for me. I have nothing else to offer, nothing else to appeal to, nothing else but you. I pray that is enough. Pray that it is. And pray that that word lives in you, so that when the time comes, you'll know what to say. But in the meantime, practice living, talking, breathing in and out the love of God into your life and into the world around you. Amen.
Amen.
And now I invite you to stand as you are able to sing together the first verse.